Welcome to the Learning Reinvented podcast, brought to you by myself, Katie Godden, and the team at the Learning Effect. There are lots of learning podcasts out there, so we wanted to do something slightly different. This week, we're discussing helping others with English language and leadership skills. I'm delighted to welcome Justyna Rogers to the podcast. Thank you for joining me. Would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners?
Well, thank you, Katie, and hello, everyone. Like you said, my name is Justyna Rogers, and I'm the founder of Meta Consultancy, where we specialize in business English language solution for mostly corporate clients across various industries, such as finance, insurance, banking, marketing, and we work with mainly non-native customers from Germany, Italy, Japan, also Portugal. So the level of English varies from place to place. Over the years, my work as a business English coach has allowed me to gain a lot of valuable insight into the communication challenges that non-native English speakers face in a corporate environment, and also what comes with it, the different patterns, different cultures that sometimes clash, and the different approaches to interactions with clients, between themselves, between colleagues. While non-native speakers often develop, I, I notice a unique secret language, one might say, where in a meeting everyone kind of understands each other and they have this flow. Wherever sometimes native speaker appears, it breaks the conversation, and that's something that we try to tackle and learn about and preempt, one might say.
Could you tell us a little bit more about your business and kind of go in a bit more in depth about how you actually do that?
Oh, thank you. That's a very good question. So we try to kind of create building blocks of the learning and understanding of different cultural differences and nuances of language that come with it. So what we do, we take it situation by situation. Sometimes the situations come from my customers. They bring whatever is happening at the moment to the table, and then we talk about it. We very often, what we like to do, what I like to do, what I'm passionate about, is role plays, which actually very often open our eyes and help us prepare for the real life situations. And as a hobby, I did some drama classes, so I know how important that is, and how much it actually helps and prepares us for the future. We also, of course, talk about the language nuances and strip the language into phrases, expressions that might help us in specific situations, or that are just commonly used depending on the situation, or are just very common in a specific area. Like, for example, it's a British expression or an American expression. Today we were talking about money, and one of the expressions, students didn't understand the difference between penny, a buck, or
Oh,
a
wow.
pence.
No, I find that really interesting. My boyfriend, he's not from England. He grew up in Greece, and I was saying about one of the expressions that we've got here, which is "it's raining cats and dogs,"
Mhm.
and he laughed at that. And in Greece, it's raining chairs. If you
Oh,
translate it into English, sorry, but it's because of the spindles on the back of the chair, so it does make sense. But it's just funny, I find, where you've got those differences in the sayings that we have, and we wouldn't necessarily understand them if you were then to translate them. And I guess
mm.
some of your students might be get a bit confused at times.
Oh, yes, yes, very much so. And it actually causes some level of frustration as well, because majority of my students speak very good English. So the communication has got a really nice flow until something like cats and dogs appears,
Yeah.
and it breaks it down. And then this kind of frustration from both sides, from the native speaker sides, that but your English is so good, we are having a good exchange. And then from the other side, like, okay, someone gets stuck basically on what does this thing mean, and kind of loses the flow and loses the ability to process. So that's what sometimes happens as well.
I can definitely understand the frustrations from both sides, especially having a boyfriend that English isn't his first language. So when it comes to business and understanding the different cultures, why do you feel that that's important?
Oh, it's very important. I think with learning a language, what I really like about this part of my job is understanding different cultures and understanding different backgrounds. So you cannot learn a language without learning its culture. And English is a very diverse language. It's the world, the global language right now, but it still carries a lot of culture with it. Depending if you're going to have to trade business in UK or Americas or Australia, uh, that also brings a lot to the table. And noticing these kind of differences helps us to understand the bigger picture, helps us to kind of feel a bit more, helps us to relate and to put ourselves in their shoes, kind of thing. So it really opens our eyes and opens our horizons as well. So it prompts diversity and inclusion. And I think in business, that's extremely, extremely important. Understanding each other. Um, brings the appreciation of diversity as well, and it helps to break down stereotypes and prejudices. Sometimes we don't even realize that we have them, and then while we learn and discovering these cultures, we are promoting the more tolerant and respectful society.
No, I definitely think that's a great point. And I love the fact that you actually go away and research that and help your people on a more personalized level. It's not just kind of generalizing, you're understanding their situation and you're able to then give them real life examples as opposed to just going, in England, people do this, or
Mm.
in Australia or in Germany, wherever it might be in the world that they do this. You're really understanding that. And I bet that helps them tremendously going forward as well.
And also
Um,
comparing, and sorry, apologize, and also
that's right.
comparing what is happening in their country and how it would play out in another country. I think this is also fun, and it just helps to discover how people might react differently depending on their culture.
No, definitely. So, I understand that you do a bit of leadership skills as well. So, how do you combine learning about different cultures with leadership skills?
I think leaders are should be the people who are there to set an example. Training good leaders takes a lot of time, and I would even question if it's possible to learn how to be a good leader. I would say yes. There is also this kind of side that some people are born leaders, but they still can improve. And I think it's very important to actually um, to become a good leader, you should start as early as possible, and you should try to take this kind of knowledge and life experiences in order to self improve. And I believe that training is crucial, and even for a person who is already a successful leader. I think leaders should set an example for their companies. So, whatever they do, it kind of creates a picture of what the company stands for. So I think there's a huge responsibility, and leaders should try to develop awareness and different skills to navigate cultural differences effectively. And of course, they should be inclusive for everyone. I
So
don't
do
know if
you
I'm.
help you yeah, no, that makes sense. So do you help people? So for example, in the UK, we're pretty diverse and
Yeah.
within workforces, you've got kind of lots of different cultures potentially, depending on what sort of industry and company that you're in. Do you think it's important to kind of bring that sort of training into general leadership training into countries where you have got a diverse workforce?
I think it's the more diverse it is, sometimes the more problems there are. So it's a never-ending story. You can never exceed this topic. You will always have something new to learn, and there will always be some situations that you haven't thought of before. So, and I do believe that focusing the training on leaders will actually help a lot of companies, because the leaders then can pass their knowledge on. So once you organize a course or a training for specifically managers or even CEOs, if they are hands-on, then they will pass on and perspire the knowledge within their teams.
Definitely. So I understand that you help non-native English speakers understand other cultures better. How do you go about doing that?
So the issue is that native speakers unfortunately rarely speak another language. So uh, very often it's very difficult for native speakers to put themselves in the non-native shoes as such. You mentioned that you have felt that yourself with your partner. So yes, the non-native speakers feel the pressure, I would say. So they want to make an effort. They really want to try to be their best. And they've been trying this for centuries.
Yeah.
English is a easy language. I always say English is an easy language to learn, but very difficult to master. So the basics, yes, when we travel, it's easy to communicate in English, but to really be able to have meaningful conversations in business, it's another story. To be able to really portray what you mean and to be successful at it, it's really another level. And there are so many things that can go wrong, so many things that could be misunderstood, that this is really difficult, and it really takes a long time for people to be really good at it. So in my courses, what we do, we use a lot of authentic materials, such as videos, TED Talks, articles, or even podcasts that expose my learners to different, also cultural backgrounds, but also accents, different situations, or different mindsets, different problem solving cases as well. So that all contributes to them improving their language skills. And of course, we talk about these situations, we build on their vocabulary and practice. Practice, practice, practice.
So how long are your clients with you for? So do they come to you with a particular type of problem and then you help solve that, or are they with you for a certain period of time? How does that work?
Well, it really depends. There is a lot of flexibility. Every customer has got a bit different needs. I've had customers who've been with me for over 3 years, and I've
Wow.
had customers who've only booked a specific period of time. For example, very often what happens is they have a situation, a presentation, for example, they are really nervous about and they want to do a good job. Therefore, it's just like an organized course of few lessons. However, I'm always there for my ongoing customers, and then I'm just like the language coach in the background, helping with emails or whatever comes along.
Oh, right, yeah, okay, that's interesting that people are able to pick that up, and it's not something that I was ever kind of really aware of. Perhaps I was quite naive to that as well, and how it, like, just speaking to you, understanding how important that is to have the understanding of different cultures, and having understanding of how to react to those types of situations. And I think perhaps we can highlight the pressure that people might feel when they are put into a situation, like you said, having to do a presentation and it not being their first language, and then having to get that across in a good way as well.
Yeah, yeah. I think very often people just don't realize how much work goes into being able to speak English in a good way. It's shocking, you know. um, and majority of people really want to make this effort. They really want to do their best, and sometimes I don't know if your audience would know Modern Family. There was this character, a Colombian wife, who struggles with English. She's got a very strong Colombian accent, and she gets penalized for it, even within family members. So that's the thing. She said once in one of the episodes that um, you don't know how smart I sound in my own language. You only hear me struggling to put a sentence together in English. You don't realize how smart I sound in Colombian. And that really stuck.
Yeah.
I think it's a very good comparison.
Yeah, definitely. I think we take that for granted when we speak to people, especially from my point of view, I think as well. Like when I'm speaking to people, I often speak to people that aren't um the language sorry, the English isn't their first language, due to my partner and living where I live. There's lots of other cultures and people from different countries. So I'm used to that, but you do take that for granted that it isn't their first language. And like I know myself, I've had to try and change the way that I speak in order to help people to understand what I actually mean. Because I think we've got so many nuances in the English language as well, and we've got so many different ways to say something, like you've kind of alluded to anyway, that it then makes it even more difficult. Like you said about the phrases and stuff like that, they're difficult to understand because in reality they don't really make any sense. Like when you're saying it's raining cats and dogs, people would think you're mad if you take that literally. Not that it's just raining heavily. So I think it's really interesting that you're helping people doing that. So why do you think, like, last sort of question, why do you think it's so important to have all of these understandings in regards to culture, different languages?
Well, cultural awareness is very important. And I think it makes our relationships deeper, and it deepens the connections with people from diverse backgrounds. I think it encourages us to have this kind of individual approach to every one of us, and it helps even curiosity and respect for each other, and leads to more meaningful and authentic relationships. I think it's just makes the world a better place, to put it bluntly. But I I do believe that, and I do believe in the good of people, and with awareness and with a little bit of openness, we can make this world a better place.
I think that's awesome. I think that's a great way to kind of end the podcast as well. And I think if more people thought like you, I think we'll get a lot further in understanding languages, cultures, etc. So thank you so much, Justyna, for joining me today. If people want to follow your journey, find out more about Meta Consultancy, how do they go about doing so?
I think the best way would be to find me on LinkedIn under Justyna Rogers.
Perfect. Thank you very much. We'll put all your links, etc., in our show notes below. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Learning Reinvented podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. If you've not already done so, please follow our podcast. And if the Learning Effect can help you and your organisation, please do get in touch. You can find both James and Katie on LinkedIn, and our contact details are in the show notes below.